Rising Productions, and this is Diva Talk. I'm Mia.
I'm Karen.
And I'm Reverie.
Welcome back, everyone.
Yay.
Woo!
Welcome
We're
back.
so excited. Today, we're interviewing another diva, and she is a fabulous diva. We're going to dig into her a little bit today.
That's right.
She is a writer in children's lit, poetry, short stories, sketch comedy, and a one-woman show, which I feel like she's kind of a one-woman show all the time anyway, but she performs as a one-woman show. She's also a puppeteer and creator of Puppets for Polling, which you can find on Facebook and Twitter. She's a producer of several short films and videos, and you can find some of her works on YouTube at KTV Productions. Everybody, please give a warm welcome to Karen T. Tucker.
Woo! Yay! Welcome, Karen.
Thanks, ladies.
I just want to
so
say,
excited.
thanks for tuning in, everyone. Last week, we interviewed Mia Giangelis, and she really rocked. And I'm excited about today.
Yay! Whoop, whoop.
Diva Talk.
Yeah.
I want to dive right into it. Karen,
Go for it.
your format of this is how art has kept me sane. Or has it, you question. So I want to ask you, why art? And what is your earliest recollection of getting interested in becoming an artist?
Good question. To segue into our interview.
You and that word.
I love that word. I love that word. It's a good word.
It's such a Karen word. I love it. Segue.
SEGU. I think a lot of it had to do with where I grew up. I grew up outside of New York City. And, obviously there's tons of influence there with opera and dance. Well, there was. Opera, dance, music, live theater. And, as a child, I went into the city, either for assemblies or with my family. All of my family members have some artistic quality to them. So, in fact, my mom spent an entire career supporting artists in her job, doing public relations at the local library where we're from. So I feel like that was a huge influence. And also, there was a curriculum when I was going to school, which sadly doesn't exist right now, at least not everywhere. There was a curriculum for art programs. And I was exposed to that as well. It wasn't an extracurricular activity. Sometimes it was in high school, but for the most part, it was something that you were exposed to in elementary school. So I think it's really important. I really think it's really important that a kid has that in their lives, because I certainly was inspired by it so much so that I think this is probably my earliest recollection is at 11 years old, I created a production company entitled Violet Ladies Production Company. And it, I don't even remember who was in it, but I know that I named it Violet Ladies because my mom loved the color purple. And I was a big fan of Grease. So I developed this production company, and there was a clubhouse in the backyard of this house that I grew up in. It's still there. My parents still have this clubhouse.
Wow.
Now a garden shed. But growing up, I had this clubhouse, and I used it as a theater. It was outdoor theater. I mean, I was so ahead of my time.
Now, how old were you?
11.
11 years old. Wow.
You're a little overachiever. At 11 years old, I was busy chasing boys around.
I know. I was playing with dolls.
I didn't have time for my own company.
Oh, well, I played with dolls too. We'll get to that. But it was, I had the outdoor seating, and I had the interchangeable set, and I even had a box office that I sold tickets from, and I had programs. I think my parents held on to this stuff. And so that was my first, earliest recollection of really investing myself in art. But I also used to play with dolls. I used to play with my stuffed animals. I have four, I come from a family of four, and I have three older sisters. And they're considerably older. So I would spend a lot of the time alone in my bedroom, playing with my stuffed animals, and I used to record plays on cassette tape, if that doesn't date me. But I used to record these plays on tape, and I would make my stuffed animals the cast of characters and come up with voices for them. And sometimes I would incorporate music. I would just decide what music might fit. And then of course I decided to go to college for it and to study musical theater. I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in musical theater. But you know, unlike maybe many of my other fellow graduates, I, wanted to do more than just perform. I was so interested in behind the scenes, and I just wanted to explore that. So I moved to San Francisco. I went to school in Boston and I moved to San Francisco, and I became a stage manager for all of these regional theater companies. And I had a lucrative career as a stage manager. But, of course, it wasn't enough. I missed my performing. And right around that time when I started to really kind of plateau, I was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. And, it was an adult to be diagnosed with this was kind of daunting. So I wasn't sure how to deal with it. And I started going to support groups, and I developed this one-woman show out of it. And I think that was probably the defining moment for me, was when I developed that one-woman show. And I realized, because I think when you think of yourself as an artist, you think you have to be like this deep thinker and, be so profound all the time. But I developed this show, and it was about healing myself and understanding myself and understanding others. And it turned out to be widely successful. And I just thought, well, this is what I want to do. I want to send a message. I want to not only use my artistry as a way to understand and, explore my emotions, but how can my emotions, or what my experience, help others? So I think that's why art and my attraction to it.
That's a beautiful answer. Later we're going to ask if it's kept you sane, but until later, let's dig into some more stuff.
Absolutely. You have such a great sense of humor, Karen, and I've seen your show, and I love how you incorporate humor in something that can be really daunting for you. And I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think that's what's powerful in your performance. Now, what I'd like to get into is your puppeteering. Back in October, as you know, you and we co-produced Shilon. I really, really missed that. I thought that was hugely successful. And for all of you listening out there, Shilon, Karen and I co-produced it, where we were focusing on supporting women in art. And Karen came out with her puppet, and I was blown away by your performance. And also, I really loved your Christmas time video that you put together on YouTube. I love that as well. I just really love your puppeteering. I mean, I love all the work that you do, but I want to get into your puppeteering. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, I had a friend who was in a puppet school, Los Angeles. And
wait, there's actually like a school for that?
Oh yeah, there are several programs in colleges that focus on puppetry, but there is a school out here, Puppet School Los Angeles. I think it still exists. And I went to go see her graduation show. And at the time, her teacher, Michael Earl, who is and was a fabulous puppeteer, he was Snuffleupagus on Sesame Street. He came out,
I love that.
Totally awesome. He came out with this cat puppet, in fact, the same cat puppet that I acquired. And he did lip sync to And I Am Telling You from Dreamgirls. And let me tell you, when this performance happened, I was like a 5-year-old. I was completely mesmerized by this. And I just thought, this is what I want to do. This is so magical. And there's such another form of expression that I haven't explored yet. So I signed up for puppet school the next day.
How old were you?
So this was back in 2012, I think. So I won't say how old I was.
No, that's fine. I apologize for asking that question. How rude of me. Yes, the 2012. So you haven't been doing this for long, but I have to tell you, when you performed at the Shilon with that puppet, you made that puppet come alive for me. And
Absolutely.
I completely fell head over heels in love, not only with that puppet, but with you during that performance.
Yeah,
So I get it.
They do have a magical quality about them. I think, either you're afraid of them or you are drawn to them in some weird magical way. And I think that they have a way of, I think that's really the key to Puppets for Polling, and why I decided to choose to use puppets. The platform is to help educate people on voting and become a better citizen and using their voice. We have this right to vote. So I really wanted to inform Los Angelinos specifically on the voting process. And so I thought, well, they're not going to just listen to me. How would they listen? And I thought, well, they need to listen to the real puppets. So I thought using puppetry as a way to educate and inform. And so the 2012 election was happening at that time. So it was a perfect opportunity for me to start that platform. And of course, it's been going on since then, and the platform has slowly changed. It's now Puppets for Polling and Public Outreach. It's become a little political. They have a voice on what's happening in the world. We did a fundraiser for NAACP Legal Defense Fund. We also were at the Women's March. So, they definitely have expanded on the voice and the platform, but I think it's still a great way of sending a message out to people. And for me, expressing my voice and my activism. And it's just a great way of getting that out there.
Well, let me ask you this. Puppets are generally geared towards children, but Puppets for Polling, because voting, you have to be an adult to vote, is geared towards adults. But do you also, because you do a lot of work with children's, and I'm going to ask you about that in just a second, but do you ever try to gear that Puppets for Polling towards children just to get them geared up for when they become age appropriate for voting?
That's a great question. I think you just gave me a great idea. Maybe I need to start younger. It's funny because I feel like my content kind of shifts. While I use puppetry, which yes, might be more identifiable with a younger audience, but like you've just said, you were drawn to the puppet. I was drawn to this puppet. I think we just don't know what we're going to listen to and what we're going to be attracted to. Even my one-woman show was designed for adults, but it turned out to be widely successful for kids too. So, I mean, we'll get into, I know, the next question, but I think, sure, I have a reach for kids too that I can explore more.
Yeah, I hope that you do. I hope that you do, because you really do have a voice for children. And, you're currently writing 2 children's books.
Yes.
So how did you go from, performing and the one-woman show and musical theater and Puppets for Polling to children's literature?
Again, I think it's one of those things like what you get exposed to or what your friends are doing. The same friend who graduated from puppet school was taking a course at UCLA Extension in writing for young readers. And I think I've always had a fascination for children's literature. I certainly loved reading it as a child. It made an impactful difference on me. And I had a hard time reading. I didn't know I had ADHD, and I didn't know I had dyslexia. So I struggled with reading, but I still read as a kid. And I think I just love storytelling. I love it so much that I thought, let me explore this genre now. Let me see what I could do with children's literature. And my first class was in picture books, which I got to tell you was really difficult to tell a story in. I think the word count has gone from 1,000 to 700 to 400 now. It's completely challenging to tell a story in that many words. And, I'm a talker. So
yeah, we all are. We're all very wordy. I can't imagine.
Yeah, and you
I
really
had a
have to
hard
learn
time
how to condense it down too.
editing, yes. But
Yeah.
I loved I loved that genre, or I loved that age group, but it wasn't, I wanted to explore other age groups. So I continued to take writing courses at the writers program at UCLA Extension, and I discovered middle grade. And it was right around the time.
Now explain to everyone what middle grade is, because not everyone knows
Yeah.
what middle
Oh,
grade
okay.
means.
So middle grade, so there's different age groups that children's literature can write for. And so
Right.
picture books is more of like your 2-year-old to maybe 4-year-old. And then you have your easy readers in the middle there, where the kid is starting to learn how to read on their own. And then you have your middle grade, where the kid is in middle school, elementary school. And that's like from like 11 to maybe 13, 14 years old.
Right.
And then there's the YA, which is young adult, and that's the
Right.
older, kind of more high school age group.
Now, when you were in this writing course in college, you wrote a piece. Degawanis was from a class over there, right?
Yeah, both pieces were developed through the writing course.
I mentioned Degawanis because I read the beginning of it and I'm completely obsessed with it already. And it's just a brilliant piece.
It's really powerful and historical.
It is.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, well, both pieces are kind of on the dark side. You know, Wake was conceived after I experienced a great deal of loss at the end of 2015, personal losses. And in the beginning of 2016 is when I started taking a writing course, and I had a classmate turn to me. I had no idea what I was going to write. And she asked me, what's your next story? And for some reason, and I know that a lot of people can identify with this, that, you know, there was a muse that kind of just spoke through me. And she said, I'm going to write about grief and loss through the eyes of a 13-year-old boy. Now, why I chose a 13-year-old boy, I don't know, but I just thought it was important to speak about that, because so many kids, and let me tell you, as part of my writing process, I interviewed kids on their experience with grief and loss, and they really struggle with it, because there's not, while there are books out there about it, there's not a conversation about it, about how to process your feelings and emotions and what to do with it. And adults have a hard time with it. So I can't imagine what a kid does with that. So,
and I think at this, you know, in the current situation that we're in, I think your book is really important to get it out there. I was very taken by reading Wake. It really moved me because of everything that we've got going on, and to hear that through the eyes of a child, you know, a young boy, I thought it was really powerful, and it's a book that needs to get out there.
Well, thank you. You guys are such fans and support. I do plan on querying agents, and I'm nearly done with my revision process on Wake. It's been a long, arduous process working on it. I know you can relate, Reverie.
Yes, I can. Yeah, but just stick with it. It's important.
Yeah, and now, you too, Mia, you worked on your book, so I know as writers, you know, this is part of the process. You have to really be patient with when you want to get it out there. Degawanis was a passion project. I thought I was going to write a screenplay about this real story, this true story about this young woman who was taken into captivity and ended up assimilating with a Native American tribe and became a chief. So it's this, you know, she has such, there have been stories told about her before, but I want to tell my story about her.
I think it's beautiful. It's so powerful. And your writing is just, it draws you in and it just holds you. It holds you right there like a warm, fuzzy blanket.
Let's just hope publishers and editors feel that way.
I think so.
You tell them to call me. Tell them to call me. I'll let them know.
I think an opener in a book, especially children's literature, is so important. It's integral to get them hooked right in the beginning, or they're just going to pick the book up and put it down. You've got to really hook them, and you have that. Not every writer has that, and you have that ability to really hook your young reader. That's so important.
Thank you. Thanks, you guys.
Now, I'd like to go back.
Wait, is she saying I read like a child?
Huh?
We all, I still do. I still have dyslexia, so I still do.
I have
I feel
moments
like
where
she just described me. Like if I pick up a book and it's boring right away, I'm putting it down. I'm not touching it again.
I think we get in that habit when we're a kid and it just sticks with us. But if I read a book and the first couple of pages grab me, I'll finish it. I will.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to, change gears here a bit because you've got such a well-rounded background. I'd like to talk about your one-woman show. What am I supposed to say? I mean, you wrote and performed that over 20 years ago. And I was wondering, how the evolution of that came about and why you're bringing it back after all these years.
Yeah, it's funny. I think, as I shared in the beginning, how this evolved was through finding out that I had it as an adult and going to support groups. And there was some funny stuff said in these support group meetings. Let me tell you, but of course it's confidential. You can't go and write about it. But I wrote about my own foibles, if you will, and my own struggles that I thought were funny. And it started off as a stand-up comedy show that I did at a black box theater in San Francisco. And then it turned into an hour-long one-woman show. And then it turned into an under 30-minute one-woman show, which then became a video. And my longtime producer and friend, Jean Thomas, we've been staying in touch all these years after having this great success with the video. I basically became the poster child for the ADHD community. I went to conferences and I performed and I sold the videos and I was in their magazines and publications.
Wow.
But it kind of lost its momentum when I moved to Los Angeles. You became involved in other projects and other interests. So it just kind of fizzled in the background and I didn't push it any longer. And really what brought it back was quarantine. Being in quarantine, and I was just bored a lot of the times. I lost my job. I needed something to do. And while I was working on other projects, in having a conversation with Gene just to check on him, we started talking about, old times and working together. And we thought, well, what if we brought this back? What if we just did and we put it on YouTube? And I had to watch it again. It's been years that I've seen it. So I had to see if it held up. And you guys watched it. And I had other
it definitely holds up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not dated at all.
No.
My outfit might be dated.
A little bit.
And my eyebrows are like caterpillars, but but yeah, I definitely felt like, well, there's still a strong message here. And there again, it's one of those things. It's like I still identify with the kid who might be struggling with this, or the adult who might be struggling with this, and this might be helpful. So why would I just keep it in a closet when I could have it on YouTube for people to see? This is what we have to do now, is get our voice out. So that's kind of why I decided to bring it back. And we decided that we're bringing it back officially in November. There's a lot of projects I'm working on right now, so I have to kind of divide when this is going to be launched. But November is when it will be launched, and just keep your eyes peeled on KTV Productions. You'll see the little icon of a yellow puppet. That's KTV Productions, and we'll have it on my
We'll drop the link for her YouTube channel in the comments below so y'all can check it out. Make sure you subscribe. Now, you speak about having a voice, and I want to talk about your voice because it is a powerful voice, not just, for children and your literature and your puppets and things like that, but your singing voice is, I reckon it to like Broadway. It resonated with me when you sang through that puppet at Sheline. It was so powerful. And I know that you say you're dabbling in music, but what does that mean exactly? Like, what are you currently working on as far as musical pieces of art?
It's funny, how earlier when I was saying, you feel like you need kind of a defining moment to feel like you're an artist. I feel like that as a musician, even though I have training in music. I went to music school, for God's sake. But it's been so long that I have really worked on that. While I did bring my singing voice back and my musical theater training back at the Shilon, you know, I haven't played an instrument in so long, and I miss that. I miss learning something. I mean, I miss understanding an instrument besides my own vocal instrument. So I have for a long time been wanting to play the guitar, learn and play the guitar. So my husband bought me a summer birthday present.
Aww.
And he got me a guitar and an amp, an acoustic guitar and amp, knowing that I wanted to learn how to play. So
is it easy? Because you play the piano, right? Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, I have experience. I can't play it like you can't. Someone put sheet music in front of me, it would be challenging. It's been so long, but I could plunk out chords and notes. Yes.
So is it difficult to go from piano to guitar?
It's harder on your fingers. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you wrote the one woman show song, the ADHD Blues. You wrote that song, and that was performed with you and your dad on piano. So are you looking to shift it over to guitar?
Yeah, you know, I have this song in mind that I wrote the lyrics to it about a year ago. And it's entitled, the current title is Cracks in the Ceiling. And it was supposed to be about something else. But now that I've gotten the guitar and I'm learning, it's a slow, painful process. But of course I have this lyric, you know, these lyrics in my head, and I want to, originally I thought I would do it on keyboard, and it could very well end up being that way, but I thought, well, why not make it guitar? So I am working on something musical on guitar with that song in mind, Cracks in the Ceiling, and it's my homage to the Honorable Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Wow.
I love that.
I can't wait to hear that.
It's a work in progress, so
I'm excited about that. Yeah. And I have to say, I love the fact that you and your dad had a duet together. That just touches me right there. That's so beautiful. I love that.
You know, it was funny because when I was developing that show and we were making the video, I had a song that I was singing, and it was sung to a very well-known jazz standard. But when I made the video, knowing that I was going to sell it, I couldn't very well use this song any longer, you know, for copyright issues. So I really struggled, like, do I keep the song? What do I do? And I was sharing that with my dad, and he said, well, I'll just write the song. You know, he went to music school as well. So he came back within probably a couple of weeks with a new composition, and it worked with my lyrics, and I had a new song for the video. And then, yeah, he ended up coming with me to Chicago, where I did a live performance. They didn't just invite me, they invited my dad to accompany me.
I love that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, and so yeah, there's a lot of great moments with me and my dad at the booth selling the videos, and yeah.
My brain don't function like other people's do. I don't know what I'm saying in the next line or two. I've got the ADHD blues. Oh yeah, I've got the ADHD blues.
So let's get back to your producing side. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we were co-producing Shilon together, and I just have to say I really miss that. But that is how this has evolved, how we're still supporting one another in the art, and we're supporting women, but we're just doing it via Zoom. But I really miss the live performances, and I learned and grew so much working with you. You are a force to be reckoned with. You're such a fantastic producer, and I think we work so well together. That's so essential, that you have good rapport. And I feel like the three of us work so well together. It's because we've got that Scorpio rising going on. But I wanted to talk to you more about, you know, how you felt about producing, and, you know, how that fulfills that other aspect of your artistic endeavors. How does that you know, how does that work for you?
It's a really good question. I think because I'm one of those artists that has a managerial brain too, there's a nice balance that I have, where I just thrive on being a producer. I thrive on the checklist. I thrive on problem solving. I thrive on seeing the big picture and trying to figure it all out. And plus, I just love that idea of going from, you know, words on a page to either it coming to a screen or to the stage or into a published piece of work, or music, any number of those mediums. I just love that. And I had the experience of working as a producer. It was really, I got entrenched in the experience when I co-founded and developed a collaborative group called Roulette Films, where we produced 13 short films within a year. And it was challenging, very challenging. Consequently, it's also where I met my husband. But I just learned so much in that time. And I felt like I loved it. But I also, to answer your question, I think it does fulfill me, because I love seeing artists on stage or on the screen. I love supporting it in the same way that if it was me developing my own work. And I think that's one of the reasons we decided to get Scorpio Rising Productions together, was because we all felt passionate about that. Not just artists, but just, you know, women and artists and people in their lives and what they were up to. And I love that idea of supporting and bringing people up and having them be heard. And so not only for just myself, but for others, I love that. So sure, I feel like if there's a nice balance of the artistic life and, you know, sitting down and being quiet and developing that voice. And there's also what do we got to do to get this show up there and with a big chicken wire set and, you know, like I just love, I mean, I started Violet Lady Productions at 11. So I guess there was some, you know, piece of that.
Yeah, you're definitely an overachiever. And I kind of question your sanity a little bit, to be honest, with all that you do. I mean, it's a lot. And, you know, the title of this segment is, you know, how my art has made me sane, or has it? So I want you to tell me, would you say that you feel more sane because of your art?
Please tell me. I think we all wonder that.
I think that there is some sanity involved, but not necessarily with the multiple projects. I mean, look, I am a woman in her 40s playing with puppets in my dining room studio. So how sane, really, am I?
Sounds sane to me.
I make things talk, but it's not puppets.
But I do think if I didn't have art, then I probably would be less sane. If I didn't have my voice and my platform and my form of expression. And, you know, as I said, my mom works with artists, and she worked with this really great artist, this visual artist. He's a painter, Alvin Clayton. And I watched an interview with him. He had a virtual gallery recently. And in his interview, he said, let's see if I can get it verbatim. If I didn't have the escape, I don't know what I would do. And would I become a violent person? Now, you know, his platform is very political. He has several paintings that express that voice. And I kind of agree with that. I don't know what I would do with the depression, the anxiety, the rage, all of the things that all of us experience. This is my outlet, is through puppetry, through my one-woman show, through my literature, through my writing, through producing, through rising other artists up to be heard. So I do think if I didn't have that, I would probably be less sane.
Absolutely. I think I'd be kicking and screaming and running down the street. So, you know, there's a lot of artists that are watching us right now. And I just wanted to, you know, cap our interview by asking you, you know, what message do you have for our viewers out there?
keep tuning in to Diva Talk.
Yeah.
And see what else we have. Everyone's dealing with a lot right now. We are still in quarantine in some states. Many of us have lost our jobs, dealing with financial struggles, all kinds of issues with returning to work, if there is work available. And I think what people have already been doing this already in quarantine is finding a hobby. People are baking now. People are going back to learning piano or dancing in their living room, or writing, getting back to their books. And I think all of those are important. So I would just say, continue with that. Continue with your artistry. And if you don't have that, then find one. Find a hobby. And you don't even have to spend any money. You could write. You could still dance. You could still compose a piece of music. In your head, you could just write the lyrics. You could use a cowbell, for God's sake. Anything to just express that voice. And the one thing I would just say to all of our viewers is we cannot stay silent. That will kill us. We cannot stay silent. We must speak up. We must, and you don't even have to have a platform or a message, but you just have to use your voice. So that's what I would say to our viewers.
That's beautiful.
It's really beautiful. Speak from the heart, like Karen always does. You speak from the heart, and it always just resonates with me. So thank you so much for joining us today. You are a fantastic interview and a great friend as always, and we've enjoyed this time with us. Now it's time for us to bid adieu. Please be sure to tune in for our next episode. We're going to have a special guest. And
yes, it's our first guest interview.
That's right.
First. It's going to be interesting how this is going to work, because the three of us, we have moments where we talk over each other just to start with. So
we're such divas.
We're going to get our feet wet.
and then with the fourth one in, we'll see how it goes. We are Scorpio Rising Productions, and we are unifying and rising up.
Unifying,
rise up.
Stay tuned for our next Diva Talk, where we interview another fabulous guest.